Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we're going to talk about lying in therapy, which is something that happens in individual and in couples, and who does that and why, from everything I've seen over a decade and a half in practice. Before we get to that, please do subscribe. We have over 200 subscriber episodes, and they are awesome. My most recent one was Marriage Isn't Supposed to Be That Hard, which may go against your workhorse ethic, but that is great when these things challenge how you think. That's what I hope to do with these podcasts, is to challenge how you think. Otherwise, why would you listen? Okay, so who do I see lying in therapy? If people, okay, first of all, let's just back up. It could be about anything. So it could be about an affair. That's happened multiple times. People are having affairs in couples counseling, and they are telling me that it's done and it's not done. You know, even an individual, people have had affairs and not told me. Also, they lie about their contribution to fights and what they say and what they do. They may yell, throw things, you know, act very dramatic in ways that they don't want to tell me about, that only come to light later, that they will confess, basically, that they did certain things that they're not proud of doing. People will lie about a sexual abuse history because they just don't want to tell me. These are the lies I know about, by the way. These are lies that people eventually tell me. I'm sure there's plenty of other lies, right? And who does this? Well, you might say, oh, just a sociopath would do that, or just a liar, a narcissist. No, it's somebody who has childhood trauma. If you have never learned that people are worthy of trust, then why would you trust the therapist? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I have to prove myself to them in a way that I don't with clients who have had more stable upbringings. So these people, they usually grow up with parents who lie, honestly, and who do, first of all, if the parents lie, you learn to lie. So that's number one. But second, if your parents lie to you, you don't trust them. So then you don't trust anybody. So you certainly don't trust a therapist. A therapist becomes an attachment figure over time, right? So you're going to put them in the same bucket as you put everybody. You know, and you put everybody in a bucket of somebody who could potentially lie to me if it benefited them, and somebody who I shouldn't trust, that would sell me upriver, that would throw me under the bus, insert other cliche here, right? And if your parent was manipulative or used things that you said against you, then you're going to think everybody's going to do that, even a therapist. So they think that if they tell me, oh, actually, I, threw a plate at my husband, that I'm going to say, well, later when they confide something, I'll be like, well, maybe all your problems are because you're a crazy bitch that throws a plate, right? That's not what's going to happen. But if you have a parent who used things against you, or a sibling, or that's just how your culture was, in your home, then you're going to think that anybody would do that. So you want to save face, even with a therapist. So you understand that a therapist is there to help you, but you still think that you uniquely may be so unlovable, because you learned that in childhood, that the therapist cannot actually help you if they know what a terrible person you really are. And so this is the type of person that lies in therapy, right? They think that they're unlovable. They feel traumatized. They do not think that they are worthy of the care even of getting therapy. Like these are people, by the way, that also say like that they're sorry that they're wasting my time in session sometimes. Now, sometimes the people that lie in therapy are narcissistic and they are really trying to build a persona of, you know, being a perfect person and I'm an audience member to them. And so that's what they're doing. But more often, they are people that do not trust, and also narcissists don't really trust. Because why does somebody become a narcissist? Not just something in the drinking water in their home, right? They literally were raised by narcissists. So they became like that. And they have usually a very deep-seated self-esteem issue that the narcissistic front is helping them with, at least in the short term. They get to feel like a Superman. And so the point being that if you struggle with confiding in therapy, it is because you struggle with trust, which is ironically what therapy can help you with. The therapist is not there to judge you. The therapist is there to help you. The therapist is there to throw things at the wall and see what sticks, right? So they are going to come out with ideas for patterns that they see and ways that you could think of your situation. What they're not going to do is say, oh, because you are cheating on your wife, you're a bad person, you don't deserve therapy, and the slot should go to somebody else. Or because you're cheating on your husband, then I can't work with you anymore. No. I mean, if somebody says that, then they're not a good therapist, right? Because, well, we're supposed to work with everybody. I used to work at a group home with children that molested other children, right? So we work with child molesters, we work with murderers. You know, we're definitely going to work with somebody who cheats or who throws a plate, you know? So basically, there are a million reasons, right, that somebody would lie to a therapist. And as I said, one of them is to save face. One of them is because you don't really feel like you belong to be in therapy. You belong in therapy unless you're perfect, but then you don't want to be too perfect. It's like this whole back and forth about whether you deserve care and love. Another one is shame, right? So if you've experienced sexual abuse, if you have experience physical abuse in a very humiliating way, emotional abuse. These are things that people do not really share sometimes. And a lot of people struggle with sharing them openly, but some people literally lie and say it didn't happen. And the more shame you have, the more you might just lie and deny. So a thing that people get very upset about, and I've discussed this before, is if they physically responded, if their body responded to sexual abuse, then frequently they think that that meant that they somehow enjoyed it and that they're a bad person and then they deserved it and it should have happened because they're like some sort of freak person whose body responded. And this is a big part of psychoeducation when you're trying to help people recover from sexual abuse. I used to work with children who had been sexually abused, and it's normalizing this and saying bodies respond to touch. And of course, that had nothing to do with whether you wanted to be abused. You know, your body responds to being touched sexually and to sexual stimulation. So that's just an example of something, a reason that somebody might not share an abuse history is because they felt that they deserved it somehow, or that they wanted it, or that if I heard the details of it, if a therapist heard that, then they would think that they deserve it somehow. So they don't share it at all. Another one that people do not share about in that same abuse realm is if they are being abusive to their own children, because they fear that, you know, that's a mandated reporting thing. You know, in therapy, if a therapist thinks that you're abusing your children because you tell them that you are, then they have to report that, right? So some people have no idea what that means. That doesn't mean if you just yell at your kids. That means if you are a consistent pattern of being abusive, or you're hurting your kids physically, sexually, of course. So some people are scared and lie about whether they'll like yell at their children, and meanwhile they should be getting help with that behavior to work on that, but they won't tell the therapist it's even happening. You know, a lot of people, they very much do not trust systems. If you grow up poor, if you grow up having to utilize systems like welfare, as I said, I worked at a group home, foster care. You don't trust anything involved with a system. So as soon as you hear anything about mandated reporting, you already, close up. So also you have to mandated reporting is if somebody is suicidal. So some people will lie and say that they're not feeling suicidal. Then they can't get the help that they need because they don't want to be hospitalized against their will. So there are other reasons also for lying. Now, in couples therapy, do people lie even with the partner there? Yes, they do. They'll say that a fight went a certain way, even if I'm going to get a transcript of the fight because they both are showing me the text messages. They'll still say it. Now, are they really lying or do they remember it differently? You know, you can put it together in a pattern of behavior if it's lying versus people do see things subjectively, obviously. Like most people, if they know you're about to see a text message transcript, they're not going to say something that's against that transcript, but some people will because in the moment, it's just very important for them to never be wrong. And that goes along with narcissistic traits. Narcissistic traits don't happen because somebody's a bad person. They happen usually because you were either mistreated or you were put on a pedestal and you had to kind of either compensate for being mistreated or you have to keep it going of being treated on a pedestal because that's the only identity that you recognize. So for example, if a parent says that you're perfect, you have to create an identity of being perfect. Otherwise you feel like you have no other identity. So, I mean, I work a lot with people with narcissistic traits, and there are a lot of people that are very, very successful have narcissistic traits, right? And so there are multiple paths to lead to that, but narcissistic people do lie more because they have a harder time with other people not thinking that they're perfect. So then if they can switch the narrative so that they are on top somehow and that they are the person that you would root for in the story, then they'll do that. Now, covert narcissists do that a lot with the victim narrative. So they'll actually make a story worse than it is. So they'll say something like, oh, I'm working 12-hour days. And they're not working 12-hour days. They're working 8-hour days like everybody else. And then if the partner comes into the session for either to consult or it moves to couples therapy at some point, it switches, the partner, I'll say, oh, it was really hard, when he was working 12-hour days. And they're like, when was he working 12-hour days, right? And so that person is not doing it to seem in some way to seem better, but also to get pity and to get sympathy and to be a victim, what I call the professional victim. Again, this isn't a bad person. This is a person who has a certain identity in their mind, and so they pick and choose things almost subconsciously from the environment that confirm the way that they think about themselves and the way that they're trying to project, an image to other people. If you recognize yourself in some of this stuff, it's never too late to start telling the truth to your therapist. Try to pick something this week in therapy that you are honest about for the first time. It can be really transformative, even just a little thing where otherwise you would have been saving face. And just pick the thing. Say, actually, I did start a fight with my spouse. Actually, I did yell at my child. Whatever the case may be, and see how it goes. I can almost assure you that the therapist isn't going to be like, you bastard, get out of this office. Like, that's not going to happen. And if you don't have a therapist, but you just lie in general, and you recognize yourself in the stuff that I'm saying because you tend to lie and save face a lot for reasons that I've discussed, then you probably could work on that in therapy to be a better partner, parent, and person. And of course, we always have great people at my practice, Best Life Behavioral Health. We have therapists, we have coaches. If you want to go deeper and figure out why it's difficult for you to be honest in the world as a human being, now's the time. You're not getting any younger. Neither am I. Nobody is. So you want to figure out how you can feel at peace and integrated in the world instead of always so anxious that if you say the wrong thing, you're not going to be loved, you're not going to be accepted, your persona isn't going to be accepted. You feel like you're on a hamster wheel. You feel frantic. Liars feel frantic that they're going to be uncovered. That somebody's going to know something about them that they're not supposed to know. It's a very exhausting way to live. So you deserve to get off of that hamster wheel and to engage in the deep self-care. Real self-care is loving yourself, trying to be more at peace in the universe, more confident in the world, so that you can live a fulfilled life instead of always feeling like you're running, but staying in place while you are trying to keep up all of these personae that various people see you as. And then you're never feeling like your authentic self because you don't even know what your authentic self is. And this is common when you are raised in a home that is difficult, where you are not really loved for who you are. Okay, so I hope that this was useful to somebody and that somebody decided that they're going to try to really bring their honesty A game into therapy for the first time or get into therapy for the first time. And thanks for listening, guys, and I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.